Hey YouTube, welcome to my new channel, Stewarding the Wealth Transfer. But I was wondering what it would look like if heaven wrote a story on the wealth transfer. I mean, it would be so awesome if we could see that story because it would have to cover the 5 W's: the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why, as well as the how. And if you're anything like me, the two most important questions are, when is it going to happen is probably the first one, but the second one is how is it going to happen? And really it's so easy to make that your total focus. But if heaven wrote this, if God wrote this, if he instructed his angels to tell us what he thought was important, he would not forget the what and the why. And I don't know if you even really think about what the wealth transfer is for or why God is doing it, but I want to offer a perspective on that. My name's Larry Wood. I went to school to be a pastor, and I was for a number of years, but nearly 30 years ago I started investing in real estate, and I felt led to leave ministry. I've had a couple runs at good success. I think your success could far exceed what I've been able to do. But I am really excited about the level of success that God is going to, take us all. I think we're all going to get to go higher. And I just want to encourage you about that. And so I've been really thinking about it because when I first heard about the wealth transfer, I don't know about you, but I didn't believe it. I mean, I was skeptical as I began to study it. And when I learned about it, I was actually a student at Wagner University, and Peter Wagner, professor or was Dr. Peter Wagner, wrote a book called The Great Wealth Transfer. And that was one of the classes I had at Wagner University. And so I had to write a paper about it and what it would look like. And it was really during that class that I became convinced that there really is going to be a wealth transfer. And other people were coming to that conclusion. And, many people have been on this journey for over a decade. I'm about 3 years in myself. And I don't know where you're at. But I want to provide not only the how and the when, because I think those are important things. And so because of what I took in school and what I learned, and I began to study what different prophetic voices have said, I really was fascinated that Kim Clement was really one of the first people I saw that even back in the 90s was prophesying there's going to come a wealth transfer. And he was pretty focused on what he said about it. And so that's my how contribution. He doesn't say when. Well, he said it was going to happen during a time of 2 presidents. And that's maybe a different video in the future. But let's just keep going on this topic. What would heaven say about what the wealth transfer is and why is he doing it? God was so excited about it. He prophesied it to Abraham over 400 years before it happened. I'm going to read a couple of these verses. I'm not sure that you would be aware of this, but in Genesis 15, verse 3, then the Lord said to Abram, who became Abraham, you can be sure that your descendants will be strangers in a foreign land where they will be oppressed as slaves for 400 years. But I will punish the nation that enslaves them, and in the end they will come away with great wealth. I think there's so many parallels between what happened in the original wealth transfer and really what's happened in our own country. And I'm not believing that the wealth transfer is limited to America, but most of the people who are going to listen to this are from America. But it's very interesting. Do you know how many years ago people left, the original pilgrims and even those who came before? They started coming from Europe about 400 years ago to this land of promise. So much like Joseph, they came and it was great. Actually, it was pretty difficult times for those people at first, pretty quickly, because of malaria and Jamestown and different places that they chose, and they didn't know how to plant and eat the foods and stuff here. It took them a while. They had probably some philosophical problems leaning towards socialism, honestly. It's kind of interesting. Our country was nearly stopped before it started because they had a socialistic idea about gardens. It's just the young men had to go do the gardens and the old guys like my age could just sit around. Well, they decided that everybody got their own little part of the garden, and that's when America started doing well, when they nearly failed at socialism, but when they turned to capitalism and self-reliance, and then things started going well. we've been in this land nearly 400 years. During my lifetime, most of my years, my 60 years, if you would have told me that we lived as slaves, I wouldn't have believed you, and I would have vehemently argued against it. But I have to tell you, in the last 5 years, I'm beginning, maybe 10 years, I really think it's very similar. I mean, we're kind of free, but we're really not. And it's very apparent in the last couple of years, since 2020, that there's a lot of freedoms that we've historically taken for granted that we no longer have. We kind of are living as slaves. And even though we're this free, formerly prosperous country, I mean, a lot of people are having a difficult time right now. But the original wealth transfer happened during a time of great tumult and troubles, and there was all kinds of judgments, really, of God that were happening to the host nation. And that host nation and the leaders of that host nation were eventually taken down, and God even, punished them like he said he would. In Genesis 15:14, I will punish the nation that enslaves them. And I think that God is going to punish the people who are enslaving us. And I think there's actually more than one nation involved. And I'm not going to go off on that. But the wealth transfer came at the end of that. So why did God bring the wealth transfer? And what is the wealth transfer? I think the wealth transfer funded the people of God, which was the Jewish nation, because they had to learn how to move away from being a slave nation into leaders. It's amazing the wealth and prosperity that the Jews have enjoyed. I mean, they've had a very difficult time. The people of God have struggled, and Jews have had way more persecution than they deserve, and that's actually ongoing in tremendous ways right now. But the people of God were funded well from the beginning of their freedom. And one of the things that I've thought about continually in the last few years as I began to really believe in the wealth transfer and lean into it, and I want to challenge you with this thought. Do you think that everybody who left as slaves got the same amount? Because Moses instructed them to go talk to their captors and request silver and gold and clothes and different, valuables as they were leaving. And they essentially plundered Egypt because of their own initiative and their actions. They were instructed what to do. Some leaned into it very hard. And it's my opinion, and, I can't prove it chapter and verse, but I believe some people probably were a little nervous or didn't do that much to do it. And I think other people were very prudent and probably worked really hard at asking, and they might have asked their friends and their neighbors, slaves, owners, and things. And I think some people came away with more than others. And I think some people stewarded it better. I think during the years of traveling in the desert, the 40 years, I think some of the people used their money in silly ways that they would later regret, and other people sacrificed and they had more. And that's one of the things I want to focus on in this channel, because this may not be a very nice phrase, but poor people work hard for money, and rich people have money work hard for them. And I want to encourage you to become somebody who, in a godly way, in a kingdom fashion, makes your money work hard for you and makes your money work hard for the kingdom. And sometimes people just use their money to provide simple pleasures, and they just focus on their lifestyle. They don't think about the next generation and different things. And I think they're really going to regret what they do with their money. I don't want you to regret what you've done with your money. So what is God doing? I believe that he's funding the people of God to usher in a sense, the kingdom of God, so that we can impact this generation, so that we can impact our culture. You think about the people who make the biggest difference in the world. I mean, I remember thinking highly, honestly, a decade ago about Bill Gates. I despise his contributions to the world, honestly, in the last decade. I used to think a lot of Buffett, but you think about Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos. These people are cutting edge people who have focused our culture because they were people of influence, and really money is one of the biggest change agents in society, and war and violence are as well. And I don't believe, I mean, God does use those things, but I believe he's funding godly people to make them tremendously wealthy so that they can fund causes and things that God cares about. And I believe that he's called us to where we're at to make a difference. And I think that Western Christianity has slipped into really a lie that we just wait for the rapture and then God's going to pull us away. I totally believe in a rapture. I totally think that there's going to be Antichrist and different things like that. I just don't think it's going to happen really soon. I think God is not creating a new generation of country club Christians. I think he's funding godly people who are warriors, men and women who've got a destiny on their life to impact culture, to impact government, to take back schools, to finance people who are godly in elections, and that will oversee fairness in these things. And he wants business leaders to rise up in manufacturing and different things. He's going to give creative ideas to people who are inventors. I believe that these are days of promise and blessing. And it's not only through the 8 wells that Kim Clement talked about, but I just think that this is a target-rich environment for God blessing people. But he wants to bless people who will make a difference. Like the men of Issachar, they knew the time and the seasons. And I believe this is the time and a season where God is going to bless those who have his heart. Do I think it's bad to live a really nice lifestyle? No, I don't. I actually think we should live wise lives of godly abundance. But I don't think we show off. I don't think that we live to please ourselves. We have to learn how to please God. I think we need to save up and store for future generations. I think that's a Western flaw in our current culture, that we don't. If you look at biblical culture, they pass their wealth on to their kids, and we don't want to do that. In fact, I think it's very ungodly that many godly people, or not many godly people, many people in our culture just think, hey, I started with nothing, my kids should start with nothing. Well, I don't think that's biblical. So I want to challenge you how to hold on to it. But I've had the opportunity to be successful twice. The first time I was living only on 20% of what I made, and yet I still went down in flames. And so I've learned that godly people can go down and suffer financial woes even when you're doing godly things. I took risks and I paid the price. And I have to own that. God was with me through it. I learned a lot of things. I actually think it was definitely, I'm blessed through the hard and the difficult things that I've been through. I don't want to repeat them again, though, and I hope I can help you to prevent them. So anyway, we'll come back to this channel. I want to challenge you to think about what you're going to do. What percentage of your income are you going to live off of when you have this? What are you going to move your money towards? If you're like me, I think a huge amount of my return are going to come in cryptocurrency, but it makes me, and I know we're not supposed to be based in fear, and we have to have faith. I have faith that crypto, prophetic crypto, is going to do extremely well. But I don't think it's wise to have the majority of your wealth in something you can't even touch or see. It's on a ledger. It's on my little wallet, but that's crazy. And I think that that's probably going to be the biggest way that God is going to bless people. And so I'm well invested into that. But I think other things are prudent as well. And I think we need to think about it. We need to think about where we're going and what we want to do. So I hope that you'll come back. I hope that you'll like this video and maybe consider subscribing. Kim Clement talked about 8 different wells. And the way I studied it, and I studied it pretty extensively, only 4 of them are even known. And 4 of them are very detailed, in a detailed fashion described, but we don't know what the name of the companies are yet. but the first 4 we do. And interestingly, he said they're going to come one at a time. And so I've been afraid that the whole wealth transfer was going to happen in a week or a month and it was going to be gone. But now I don't believe that. I think it's going to last quite a while. I think early adapters are going to have tremendous advantages, but also people who plan on what their exit strategies are. My brother, who I'll talk about further because he was a basketball player and he's the one who helped me 30 years ago, over 30 years ago. He gave me 6 months' wages that I was making as a pastor, and I began investing in real estate thanks to his generosity. But he had a prophetic dream where he saw 2 gold tablets, kind of like envisioned them like the tablets, the 10 Commandments that Moses had, except these were golden tablets, and there was 12 opportunities. And my brother saw in his dream 12 100x return opportunities coming during the wealth transfer. And I believe that. I think there's opportunities, but what that confirms what Ken Clement said is that people are going to have to move from one thing to the other, from one crypto to the other. And you need to have a plan for that. But I also think if you want to hold wealth, you don't just want to hold it all in crypto. And you don't want to hold it all in real estate. You don't want to have maybe necessarily a bunch of debt. So those are all questions we're going to talk about, but I appreciate you watching. I'll be praying for you, and I'm going to pray that you'll be able to live out the destiny that God has on your life. And please subscribe to this channel, and you guys have a great week. Bye.